Oh, nice, dude. Thanks for killing me. Let me get on the ground next time. Yeah. Watch out, Tigo. Someone's right above you.
Check your fire!
I died. Instantly. Let's go, teammates, down here, down here. Oh, he landed too hard. Oh no. I got you. Let's go, let's go. Where? Hide.
You're done warming up. Stand by for deployment to the war zone.
What? Oh, that's why it's lagging. Or not lagging, but the game's open. Yeah, we're all going back into his headset. Yo, Steve, what's up, man? Glad you got in Discord, my brother. Yeah, took me a little bit of persuasion to get Tigo to deliver the message, but...
You've got gas closing in fast. Get to the safe zone.
Why do these graphics look so horrible?
Dibs on that.
I have everything on... Guess I could turn it on high. See how it looks now. Are y'all jumping? Where are you going? There's nobody marked. Are you serious? Nobody marked though. Okay.
Supply box marked. Secure the
I didn't
package.
see it.
Your primary objective is to kill them all.
I got a pink weapon. How cool.
Enemy UAV overhead.
You good? Oh. Okay, I'm dead. Oh. I just got crossfired. Right now. Well.
You're in the gulag now. Fight to earn redeployment. Pay attention, you'll be out there soon. You can always have a go at these bastards while you wait. Give them
Yeah, I
some
didn't know
choice
where we were
words or
landing.
smash their mugs with a well-placed stone.
When I got there, I was already dead.
The fight's on. Get ready to fight. You're next.
Good. I'm ready to fight.
Listen up, soldier. Win here and you return to the front line. But if you
Awesome.
lose, you're done. Sort them out or capture the objective.
Are you
Got roughed
kidding?
up in there. We're bringing you home.
I guess he just ran up and 1 millisecond before it
Your
captured,
team
he
can still
shot
buy
me
you
in my
back
head.
if they have the cash.
Dead.
I'll check around here. Hostiles in the area. Bit of body armor here.
That's it. Shake it off.
LMG here. Hostiles in the area.
I don't know.
Hostiles in the area.
Target eliminated.
Oh, there you go.
Contact.
Nice. Nice.
That's it. Shake
Nice.
it off.
Yep. 3 of them. Yep. Y'all have enough to get both of us back once you're clear. Oh, us. I think so. Working now. So is this how y'all play now? Is just like you stay really far apart? I was just wondering if there was like
Our team's in a safe zone. Movement.
got the cannon. Like a cannon. It's the cannon. Terminator Jr. Wait on him. Yeah. All good things come to an end. Right? There's that cash money. Make sure you buy me back first. I was the first dead, so.
It's only right. It's only
Dude, that was instant death.
Yeah, I know.
Literally, like,
Died instantly.
it was like 1 millisecond of life. There you go. Get him. Go, Stevie. Alright, running into the wall. Right, my guy's like professional. I have 1 millisecond left. He jumps out of the corner and gets me instantly. See, this is one reason why I don't like to play this, because I don't like to just
that one, but we'll be back to finish the job. We're holding for deployment. Now's a good time to warm up.
Alright. Alright, I'm getting warmed up. Yeah, great. Awesome. Nice, got him.
I'm taking fire!
Nice. Nice, nice. 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 Oh, there we go. I didn't have a weapon. This is so laggy. This is so laggy. Is it like that for you? I'm lagging so bad. I can't even move. I think I lagged out. Client command overflow. Well, there we go, boys. Alright, well, everybody's got a... Alright, boys, I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I'm in the lobby. I do personally like search and destroy more, but sure. Yeah.
I do too. I like search and destroy a lot too.
I like this, but I don't know. I just don't think Call of Duty is a battle royale game. It's just too easy to, everybody's on the same playing field. It's not like Apex or I've never played PUBG, but like in Apex you actually have a chance if you have a better shield or something. Like in this, if somebody doesn't have a shield, even if they see you, you're dead if you don't see them. There's just no responsiveness. You're just eradicated. It's like if you get shot in this game, you're dead. At least 70% of the time. There's just no reacting. Doesn't matter how good your movement is or anything. Very rarely will somebody not kill you.
There now. Flasher! Mark out. Moving. Send a claymore. Gun down.
Ugly. For me personally, though, that's why I've never got into Call of Duty.
You're done warming up. Stand by for deployment to the war zone.
Move in position.
What?
Moving.
copy.
Battle Royale.
Need a driving.
Gas is closing on
Mark
your
a good
position.
spot to
Suggest you
drop
get
in.
moving.
Here's a good
Disregard
spot.
that.
Scratch that.
That'll come in handy.
Is that where
Good
we're
landing
going?
site here.
Alright, alright.
Good landing site here.
Are we landing together or like? Okay. On blue. Roger. Helps me to help you.
Moving.
Heading this way.
All right, lads, let's get it done.
Assault rifle located.
Thank you for the assault rifle.
Got a launcher here.
Oh, a javelin? Have you ever seen the
Shotgun
the
mark.
C4 helicopter bait?
Move in position.
People will camp the helicopter, they'll put C4 on it, and then when the people like fly away, they'll blow them up. It's pretty funny. Yes, helicopter. Boom. Totally not. Nice. I got a wanting for to survive. Where's your hot nugget, Carlo? You still use your hot nugget? I didn't know if you got to the chicken nugget now.
LMG located.
Did y'all see anybody land here? Okay. I mean, I'm good with whatever y'all want to do. I'm looted though. I just need money. I really want to find people to get my money. Sorry. It was a sneeze. Trying to think of what movie that's from. Oh, that sounded you sounded just like the guy from Home Alone. Do you hear that? When his head's against the door? Yeah. What is this? After it blows them against the wall, smashes their faces. That's the sound of a tool chest falling down the stairs.
That's a classic movie, dude.
My favorite though is when he got electrocuted
Assault rifle located.
at the dryer. They show that fake like classroom skeleton like from Bill Nye the Science Guy. It's so fake. Ooh, that's actually what I'd rather have.
LMG located.
Actually, I'll keep the Odin.
Small caliber rounds here. Assault rifle located. Mid caliber here.
What do you want to do?
Vendor marked.
Yes, sir. Oh, dude, you got 10 G's. What?
You're losing
They
ground.
increase it again? Man, I guess they just found an imbalance in people to keep buying their classes. What are you gonna buy it? Okay.
Friendly loadout drop on the way.
No. That's just gunman distracting us with his tactics.
Traction.
Enemy helo.
Halo ass with my hot nugget. It's a hot nugget, right?
Downed him! Oh! Headshot! Yeah, let's go!
What happened?
I downed him in the helicopter. Yeah. I was just shooting at it. I was just like, oh, okay. That boy fell. He's crying.
Right? He's probably like, what?
I'll be crying too, though. Ooh. I would be saying that too, though. I've never done that. That guy,
That reminds me of the thing. Big bomb. That's
dude,
it,
he was
big
like
bomb.
300 meters away in the air, much less. Yeah, I did. There was a guy on the side. He was sniping. Yeah, I didn't snipe the actual driver, but still, that's crazy. I can't. Yeah, I didn't even know you could do that.
Moving.
Station. Let's go.
Mark out. Moving. Send the claymore.
Bunch of shots.
No, 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 no.
I'll drive. Let's go.
Do you see somebody?
Nobody.
Or did two?
Lead the way.
Oh, that wasn't you. I think he's over here.
Send the
Dude, I
claymore.
keep setting my claymore. I think he's top right. Yep.
Movement.
No, someone shot.
Over
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
I mean, I'm running backwards.
Run. Just run.
Grenade out!
I got my thermal, so if he's there, I'll see him. Oh, he's right here. Broke his armor. I can't ping for some reason. I don't know if it's like.
Movement.
I think I changed it though.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's
Send the
my
claymore.
claymore for some reason. Ah, there we go.
Heading in.
That's what it is. He was over here
Mark
though.
out.
He was right here.
Moving.
They're running.
Hostiles in the area.
Truck. That's a. I don't know if that's them or what, but they're up here, I think. I don't know though. They could be in the house. I don't know if that's the same team that was in the truck.
Oh, buddy.
Moving.
I got mine too. Oh, two, four. There's four of them. Ah! Right here.
Taking fire.
He's down.
Friendly loadout drop on the way.
Check fire. Someone. Send the claymore.
Get back here.
Set a drop
We'll be
point
all right.
for your team,
I got him.
soldier.
This guy's right here.
Your teammate was
In the
sent
back,
to the
right here.
gulag.
I'm about to kill
They'll
him.
fight for a chance to redeploy. Gas
Got him.
closing. Get to the new safe zone. Get contact. Be advised, your teammate got their ass.
So bad.
Their RCB
Trophy system
at this
deployed.
time.
You pushed in there?
Putting me so bad for that.
Alright, just let's stop pushing there. I'm about to use my heartbeat.
Mark out.
Just back up if you have to. They got cold blood, so you can't see them. Is that on us? No, it's not. Oh, he closed the door. Let's just kind of get in. Let's like go up here maybe. Watch that doorway. Because we can't detect them anyways. Carlo, did you die in the gulag? Let's get him back. Can you press your thing? So we can see where the closest card is.
Move in position.
Right in your left, Kevin.
Vendor marked.
Alright, I'll give you my money. I'm back.
Buy armor though. Buy that.
Yeah, I do need armor. Alright, boys. Top 27.
Gas is moving.
Okay, we're gonna be close. Get your stuff, Ace.
Yo,
Enemy UAV overhead.
okay. I'm gonna kind of sit here. I mean, we're good.
We're
I
inside
think
the
this is a
ring.
good place.
It's hard to get noisy.
What? Yeah, right. Do a lot of people use cold blood? Okay. I just remember the heartbeat was like the thing, and then now it's like everybody's using cold blood.
Well, everybody started catching.
They
Movement.
pushing up the hill?
Target right here.
Oh, what the heck? No, I'm gonna come out to you. I'm in the house.
Moving out.
Okay.
Target right here.
Good copy.
Moving out.
Under the bridge?
Movement.
How am I not hitting this guy? He's sitting still. Hitting?
Target right here.
There's two guys over here.
Hostiles in the area.
Target right here.
Gas is inbound. Marking new safe zone.
They're in that city.
Target right here.
There were people here. Be careful. They were in the city. Right, somewhere in here.
Heading in.
I don't see anybody now, but
Rog.
armor plates in here if you need them. Oh, right here. I'm running. He's in the street. In the street, right here.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Hostiles in the area.
You're losing ground.
They got cold blood, I think, so don't
Heading this
rely
way.
on your tracker. I think the rest of them
Stay sharp.
push back in the
Enemies
building.
right here.
Someone's nicked all the loot. Watch your asses.
I think they went in here.
Hostiles in the area.
Oh, here comes a car. It's right here. It's coming
Hostiles
this
in the
way.
area. Hostiles in the area.
Yeah, hit him. I think they got out. They got out here.
Hostiles
Oh, he's
in
calling
the
in
area.
his friend. He's calling in his friend right there.
Enemy UAV
All right,
overhead.
I'm trying to get there. Two of them. I got you. I got you.
All right,
I got
don't look
you.
at it.
I got him. I got him.
Who got a heartbeat?
I do. I do. Think they're pushing in. Oh, okay. Be careful though, because that team that ran back, they're nowhere to be found, but they're somewhere. That's for sure.
Yeah, that circle's getting. Oh, we might want to cover.
Movement!
Is that a guy? The Bushman?
Kind of posted in here for a minute.
Gas is closing. Get to the new safe
They
zone.
gotta come to us anyways in here.
Fool me. Yep. Coming this way.
Moving.
They got out.
Hey, over here. Here, team.
Behind us.
Mark out. I'm going.
I got one that broke his arm, but he probably covered his health.
Understood. Understood.
Armor broke. Right here in the top door.
Hostiles in the area.
Yeah, dude.
How many did you see, Caleb?
Just one. He was peeking out trying to find where you were.
Yeah, there's two of them.
Gas
Down.
is moving.
Nice.
They're down, I wouldn't push.
I think we're good. Let's just wait. Still 41 people.
Movement!
They're fighting back there. Right here.
Hostiles
Got
in the
cold
area.
blood. I can see him though.
Target right here! Movement!
He's right here.
Over here.
Right here. In that
Hostiles
house.
in the
that
area.
house.
Cancel my loss.
He's got
Driver,
cold
can you
blood
take
though.
us?
He's got cold blood. Right here in the door.
Hostiles
Down,
in the
down,
area.
down. I'm down though. I'm down. From across the way, other side.
Stand up.
I downed that guy, little Carlo, in the doorway. He was alone. I didn't see his friends. I'm getting off this roof.
Taking effective fire.
Okay.
Target
I'm
right here!
healing. Nice. Got him.
Fighting's done.
Nice.
The area's cleared out.
Nice,
Okay,
nice.
let's keep it moving, guys.
Gas is inbound. Marking new safe zone.
Careful on the right over here. I don't know if there's any more people.
Moving up.
I got thermal. I don't see anybody.
You've got a loadout drop inbound.
The thermal on the scope is so good. You can literally see everything. Oh! A boy tried to shoot us with a rocket. I don't think he can get to us, so he has to climb the whole hill.
Mark
Yeah,
the
let's just
target.
keep going with Garza. I got an airstrike, so can you mark him?
I'm moving.
I'll put an airstrike right on him. Okay. Put an airstrike right on him. Really? Okay.
Gas is inbound.
You want to push over there?
Hey, team.
All right.
Team. Team.
Tigo's got a guy in him. Carlo, you're way in front.
Oh, you guys, they're gonna be shooting.
I'm looking at you. I don't see anybody by you, Carlo.
Yeah, there is. A whole team.
I'm saying
Oh,
not.
they ran. They
Yeah.
did. Oh, they did.
Let's go this way.
Heading in.
This is on the hill.
Snipers, I bet.
If we go this way though, this is on the
Over
hill.
here.
Right here, load out, load out, load out, load out.
People are falling
Moving up.
over here.
If you need a loadout right here.
Care package marked.
Down. Gone.
Target right here.
Moving. Shoot at me. Someone shot me.
Yeah, dude, you're out there and. Oh, he's running up the hill on him. He's running up the hill on him. On gunman. Right here.
Hurry before they're on.
You're okay. Get.
Oh, dude. You're outside
Got
the
gas
ring.
inbound. Safe zone relocated.
Run.
Movement. Movement.
I need I need shields.
Trophy system deployed.
Behind us?
Behind us, right
Found
here.
an SMG.
Where?
Right here, on out.
Oh, dang
Five
it.
remaining.
I'm sorry.
on the ground.
Come on, fellas, you can do it.
Right here. I think to our right. Right here.
Gas moving.
Grid mark.
Here, pull back,
Overfire.
Tigo. I did an airstrike. I did an airstrike.
Copy.
No, no, no.
Movement.
Just keep pulling back. I got him. Whole team white. Let's go.
You're okay. Get up.
Good kill.
No. I can only get one of you. I can only get one. Sorry. Only get one. Whoever I. No.
Less than 25. We're
Dang
still
it.
standing. They hit us hard that time, but we'll settle the score.
That was a good one. That was fun. That was fun. Yeah, dude.
Man.
That's
That airstrike.
great. That was it too. I definitely can't. Dang.
Get yourselves a proper warm-up. We'll be deploying soon.
Crossbow, let's go. Ain't. Clap.
Playtime's over, mate. You're going to the war zone.
I should have just. Boy, never know, but no.
Battle
Mark your
Royale.
gear.
There's too much going on.
Avoid the gas. Get to the safe zone.
Team was rushing up behind us on the gas.
Mark the DC. Stand by for deployment.
Where are we going, dude? Y'all are
Also marked.
super-
Get ready. I can use that.
Like seven marks.
Mark some gear.
Is that where we're going?
That'll come in handy.
Ah, just making sure.
Moving out.
Heading in.
Heading this way.
Your primary
Heading this
objective
way.
is to kill them all. Supply box located. Move to secure.
Down mines.
LMG located.
Well, RPK. Okay. Might have some here, boys.
Moving up.
SMG
Objectives
located.
updated. Move to the next location.
Yeah, precision airstrike. My
Assault rifle located. Device marked.
Objectives updated. Move to the next location.
I don't see. Looking in the whole city in front of me. Over here.
Heading in.
Actually,
Steve's to
Steve.
Mark some gear. Move in position.
Police station. There's a gas
Anyone
mask.
need this?
I'll take that.
Guys, get that gas mask. That's $3,000. Good job. Get it. Let's get it up, boys.
Hey, Tigo, where's that? Where's the police?
My mouse is so heavy. How much your
I'm moving.
what mouse do you have?
Device marked.
Oh, so you like? I had mine in there, like 3 of them. I took them out though.
All supply boxes found. Solid work.
Where?
Store's gonna be hot.
Do you want to die?
Vendor marked.
All right, let's get together, guys.
I'm moving.
You're clear.
Bunch of
You've got a loadout drop inbound. Gas is moving.
Care package marked.
God damn. Dang, that boy got the shield on his back. Cover me, Steve, cover me! Oh, the shield. Yeah, let's go.
Send a claymore.
I'm moving.
Okay.
Heading this way.
Got this. Hey.
Our team's in a safe zone.
I think this is better with four.
Assault rifle located.
These two, the
Mark some gear. Disregard that.
Oh, right here on top of the house.
Hostiles in the area.
This was peeking up. Yeah, I know. Here, I'm watching though. He was just up. And he went, oh, got him.
Target marked.
Okay.
Hit him.
If I get him,
This is Striker 3-1, good copy. Strike inbound.
got him.
Splash, good kill.
Taking effective fire.
Moving.
The airport. Airport.
Target right here.
The airport. Run. I think they called back in their person right away.
Caleb always trying to make fun of someone.
No, it's just funny when people say words differently. The airport. A horrible place, dude.
Where are you guys going?
Small caliber round here. Moving out. Moving out.
Do you run slower with the sniper? Or is that just...
Yes. No, you do. That stuff's way heavier than
You want to come here?
Heading in.
You go up the stairs here?
yes, sir, but I'm going. I need to use the arm.
Move in position.
Alright. I'm going. Another airstrike. How didn't I get a kill though? Oh, because you knocked him, but I killed him. I didn't get a kill for that. Did you get a kill? But even if some, did they change that? I know that was
Does
like a
anybody
glitch
else
at
need a
the
gas
beginning,
mask?
right?
Anybody else need a gas mask? I'll see if there's one. Hey,
Oh, right here.
Target right
Contact.
movement.
Armor pop. Right here.
Hostiles in the area.
Oh, javelin! Get your javelin, dude! Right here. Right there.
Contact.
Marked it.
Enemy helo.
he's good.
You've got a loadout drop.
Got him?
Watch. Just watch.
Watch it. Dude, I fell off. Help me.
What happened to him?
I was watching for your javelin because I wanted to
What
see
happened?
it.
Gas
There it
is
is.
inbound. Marking
You
new
got
safe
him?
zone.
Yep, gone.
Can you
Eliminated.
res me, Carlo? No. Right here. I did that. I was watching for your javelin. I wanted to see it and I was holding forward.
Did you see him blow up? Did you see him blow up?
No.
Dude, they just vanished. Dude, they literally just vanished.
I was
Triple
watching
kill.
for it.
That
There
was
you go.
sick. Here, blow him up.
Right over here.
I gotta get him
Moving
higher, I
up.
can't see.
Oh.
This thing's awesome, dude.
I wish that's one thing they had. Some type of rocket launch. Type of rocket.
Hey, where is it?
Someone take the bloody
Supply
wood.
box identified. Marking location now.
Oh, watch this. See ya.
Send the claymore.
Have you seen that coming? Only one of them in there. Guy. Oh, right in here.
Going in.
I gotta claim.
There's only one guy.
You've got gas moving in.
Solid copy.
Got a few shells here. Heading in.
Enemy movement! Heading this way.
Team white.
He's lit.
Arlo, you're on a roll, buddy.
We're inside the ring. It's about to get noisy.
This thing is sick, dude. I ain't ever cared. He just destroys any. Else wanna be in?
Movement.
Mark the target.
Target right here.
I'm hit!
See if I can get him.
Gotcha. Understood.
Oh,
Target right here.
I got this one somewhere for the claymore, but they can come up on the opposite side by the wall. They can come.
Heading in.
They jump, they jump. Okay. Okay.
Movement.
Locked onto something, I'd let it rip. Destroyed vehicle. Yeah, he's like,
Got movement. Got movement.
Movement.
Hostiles in the area.
oh, he's
Enemy precision airstrike. Take cover.
Get inside, get inside. That didn't work.
I need ammo.
Moving out.
You've got gas inbound. Safe zone relocated.
Move in position.
I need to see more vehicles.
Friendly UAV overhead.
Oh, there's a guy. A guy. Right in front of us. Right in front of us.
Large caliber
Right on
here.
the ground. See him? And behind us.
Let me
In
see if
front
I
of
can
us.
track
And
down.
behind us. Get ready.
Movement.
He's right here somewhere.
Heading in.
I'm watching the way you're watching TV.
Enemy movement! Enemy movement!
Smoke!
Got movement.
Moving.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I just shot
Bastards!
Oh, he's dropped.
Get up! Now!
Movement.
Got movement.
Might want to think about moving.
In the ring.
Okay, but across here, over here.
Oh yeah, I'm opposite building.
Enemy movement!
Hey!
Opposite building.
You've got gas moving in.
Okay.
Nope, nope, nope.
Down!
Headshot. Down.
Okay, I need to get.
Hard bastard, you'll make it.
Got pushed. Out of here. I gotta go down to the cart real quick.
Hold on.
Oh, he's down there.
Moving out.
Hostile.
I gotta go down there. Someone up there?
Oh no, but
Tigo,
I'm
jump
over
off
here.
yourself.
Here.
Doesn't res- Yeah, I jumped down ahead.
Scrub the contract, it's over.
Oh, they're coming, Tigo. Shadow. Shadow, I don't know where. Maybe.
They can't. If they come up this way, I gotta play more. Yeah, we gotta go right now. Gotta go.
Hey, I'm going.
Moving up.
Get blasted.
Run, just run. Get blasted.
I have no idea.
Oh,
Taking
oh,
effective fire.
top the house.
I'm taking fire.
Your teammate has entered the gulag. Surviving earns them redeployment.
Good. Tigo, are you safe?
Movement.
Your teammate has entered the gulag.
Grids marked.
Surviving
Call for
earns them
fire.
redeployment.
This is Striker 3-1, good copy. Strike it.
Teammate redeploying to the AR.
Down.
Gas is closing in. Relocate to
Got him.
the safe zone.
Got him.
Splash, good kill.
Got him. Let's go.
X-ray down.
That airstrike, boy. Hey, where'd he jump? Where'd he jump?
Target down.
Let's go.
Taking fire.
Let's go, boy.
Your teammate's
That's
done
his
in.
spot.
They're returning to base.
Movement.
No, he's right here. Down. Let's go.
Hey, wait, let me grab all that stuff.
Did the airstrike.
Mark.
Stop it. No. That's why I keep buying them. Me too, need them. I was able to put it right on top of the house, so I eliminated them from the squad. On top. You want more stuff up there?
Gas is moving.
Moving.
Oh, we gotta go though. We
Yes,
gotta go right
yes.
now. Right now. Vehicle on the way here.
Move in position.
Get,
Enemy UAV overhead.
Yeah,
Movement.
you got enough to buy armor too.
Enemy UAV overhead.
I'm gonna get him back though.
Here, yeah, get him in.
There's someone on that though. I think we just need to skip it. Let's get another one. Gotta get at him.
Oh, we ain't got much left though.
That's in the gas.
Movement.
Got you.
I'm moving.
I have armor too, Caleb.
I'm good. You need armor?
Yeah, I need armor.
I'm moving.
Okay, we got
Grids marked. Call for fire.
Get an airstrike.
This is Striker 3-1, good copy. Strike inbound.
Got movement. Got movement. Movement.
Redeployment is fueling up now. Get this done. Sharp.
We got you back.
Gas is closing. Get to the new safe
Right
zone.
here.
Shots missed.
Are they up there?
Moving.
Right here.
Bastard! Hostiles
Got
in
a
the area.
loadout drop inbound.
Be careful, don't push it. Here. The loadout, Carlo. Over here.
I don't need a loadout.
You're good?
Mark out.
Yeah, I need
Moving.
armor.
Care package marked.
Heading in.
Alright. Guy in here. Oh, he's waiting. Don't push it.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Gunner out.
I've banged. Behind us.
Give me up, hurry.
Got him.
You're okay. Get up.
Get the gas mask. Oh, right here. Oh, he came out with us. I shot
Learn from the loss. Failure's a proper teacher.
That dude came where? So until we. Does seem like that with our team.
Oh, I forgot. Thanks, man.
Man, dude.
Yeah, see, that situation right there, what happened? I was shooting, but I think in the talks, I think he can hear me. Yeah, I can. I've been able to hear him the whole time.
Sweating. Hey. No, I've been sitting on it.
He wants to play co-op. Already starting it. Like
It's just like war in a sense.
I like Surge. I like
think
it.
so,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, because it's legit.
Right.
It's
Yeah, Call of Duty. Play Call of Duty. Like that. Go to your builder and then go to.
It's kind of just like a basic weapon set.
But everybody has the same weapon. Advantage
Like
over
a lot of. Well, you can.
two. I mean, you can get some other, but they got restrictions on it.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's like it's real basic. You can't do like. There's 90.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Got certain restrictions on it.
Enhancements.
I'll do it. And
Yeah,
it's
you
just
can.
for certain ones you can't.
You get in there, it will tell you. It will tell you. Like your low. What's game mode?
I was talking about Call of Duty. On it. Here, I got you. Let me do it to you. You guys actually like to do Call of Duty? Just search and destroy. Alright, we'll do Oh, want to invite your friend? I have all the assault rifles.
Yeah, you just can't have two. They don't have that class, whatever it's called. You can hold two.
We got so much restriction.
Yeah, you can put a lot on there. You can deck out your gun. You can't even put a. Well, just sit in the corner. You ready? It is pretty good actually. In this, have to play.
Hard point. Track down the hard points and control them. First hard point marked. Get moving. Enemies got the hard point. Capture the objectives.
Behind me.
On me, in the building, right there. They're camping that. Don't even go off the cave. Gotta go there. Yeah, I'm going to the back corner. Triple kill.
Ten seconds. Get ready to move.
What? Dude, I couldn't even see him though. Like, it showed on his screen.
Enemies taking the hard point. Control the hard point.
That's why I want to play with a kitchen. I don't feel like.
Get ready. We're about to move.
I'm gonna be on the opposite side of the.
Control the hard point.
He's already there. He's hiding.
Enemies got the hard point.
It is a team.
They're clapping me.
Enemies halfway there.
Because
Get
every
the top.
time I push in, like, they're on top of a building, they're in a house somewhere. I just don't know where to go. Yeah,
Oh, we're
what
getting
happened?
small.
I get smoked.
Bro, we could literally do nothing. Hey, see, this is different level tailing.
Yeah, well, you have to know once and
There's a little more. So movie.
turn it on. Yeah, search.
A little more straight.
Searching the. So
was crazy.
They had a perfect. Right, that's really worse.
He'll do a lot better.
Search and destroy. Enemy assets ID. Grab the bomb and destroy those targets. We have the bomb. Move.
Hey, Carlo.
Nice hit, Tigo. That's the bad dude.
Less than a minute.
I think you can kill your friends with this, actually. Can't you, Carlo?
Yeah. Terrible aim.
They're making us fight for it. Keep at 'em.
Oh, it was way off.
Yeah, auto aim make catch. And after he shot about the.
Switching sides.
Somebody grab the bomb.
I didn't even know.
Search
we were
and
playing
destroy.
Offense, sorry.
And on.
I'm going B.
Asset locations confirmed. Defending them is critical.
It's nice.
Less than a minute.
Hey, Tigo. Okay. Wait. Guys, make sure you're watching A too.
Seconds. Time's up. Move your asses.
Gotta do those. Watch the pool.
Enemy bomb at Bravo. Get over there. They're making us fight for it. Keep at 'em.
Look at Teagle with 4 and we all got 0.
Switching sides. Search and destroy.
Yeah, I'm gonna play it.
Target's ID. Get to the bomb and move in. Got the bomb. Get to the target. planting the bomb. Secure the area. Less than a minute. Our bomb is set. Hold that position.
Of anywhere he could have come, he comes the most.
Enemy has defused our bomb. Put it behind you. We got work to do.
Face the talent level's a little up. I don't know what it is, dude. I'm getting.
Also keep it, I know when you play with
Switching sides.
keyboard players.
Well, it doesn't help. that
Search and destroy.
last two. Where you going, Caleb?
I'm just gonna.
Oh, two of us gotta
Asset
go.
locations confirmed. Defending them is
I kind of
critical.
want to play offensive right here. I could. Got one. You planning? Oh
Forget that round. On to the next.
Dang!
no. Getting ripped.
Well, dude, we have one less.
Guys just camping everything.
Switching sides. Search and destroy.
Rush, dude. Oh, just gotta kill him.
Target's ID. Get to the bomb and move in.
You.
Bomb is in play. Attack the weapon caches.
Oh, they're both behind that wall. Two of them made it. Nice. B, cleared B, cleared B.
We're
Nice,
planting the
nice.
bomb. Watch your asses.
Go, boys.
The bomb has been planted.
Hold it. Watch it. Watch it. Unmanned.
Dude, they started swarming me, dude.
Stop the clock. They've got our bomb. Shake it off. Focus on the next round.
I got another. What happened to you?
Switching sides. Search and destroy.
Okay, we need two. We need. One.
Asset locations confirmed. Defending them is critical.
No, there.
Stay on A.
Less than a minute.
A lockdown. Oh, he's creeping then. There we go. Extra
That's
person.
it, lads. On to the next round. Get ready.
Yeah, move, dude.
I know, he's so sliding.
Switching sides.
IG.
Search and destroy.
Bubba.
Go A, guys.
Busted. Okay. Busted.
Caleb. Get the bomb.
Yes, sir.
Target's ID. Get to
Got
the
it.
bomb and move in.
One in.
Got the bomb. Get
I
to the
don't like
target.
this initial rush though. I just want to kind of play patient. He watches that way. Every way with sniper, I wouldn't go that way. Watches that. Yeah, he watches that way every time. I'm gonna rush with the. Alright, I'm getting on A.
Planting the bomb. Secure the
Cover
area.
it. Just stay on A, stay on A.
Bomb planted. Start the clock.
I'm watching back. I'm watching back
Good,
over here.
good.
Nice. Let's go, boys.
Stay
Let's
hungry.
get that comeback.
There's more where that came from.
We got him. They can't. The next one they win the game.
I know. Our boy, busted. Look
Oh,
at
he
that
just
boy.
took, look at this dude.
Switching
5-0.
sides.
Man,
Search and destroy.
Okay, who's going what? Who's going what? Who's going what?
I'm just doing what I do every.
Okay, I'll go
Assets
left.
identified. We need to keep them intact.
Double. I got a double. Be on B.
Oh, they're on. Yeah, there's people on B. There's people on B. Yeah.
Where's the bomb?
Okay, right there. No, he's right.
Less than a minute.
Who got that clap?
Oh.
Guys, it's 3-1, so.
30 seconds. Time's up. Move your asses.
Yeah, I'm just watching. I got B. I got B fully.
Hey, he's on A.
Right here, he's pushing A in the middle. Pushing A in the middle.
Just let him get to it. Play
Yep.
time. Play time. He has to. He
Yes.
has to.
Coming in that area where you're looking to.
Right there in the middle. Tell Steve in the middle. Go right. Right there. Right there.
Nice!
We've got them on the rope. Don't let your guard down.
Here we go,
They're
boys.
probably like, what's going on here? They just.
Skeet. Sorry, Luke. Got to push up.
Switching sides.
Okay, maybe we should go B actually. It's a little more.
Search and
That
destroy.
worked. What we did last time. Landed it right away. Let's. I mean, it worked. So
Target's ID. Get to the bomb and move in.
I just played it patient. We just played it patient.
You've got the bomb. Get to the target.
Hiding everything. Might be able. Yep. Nice. Our boy busted. Going off. Ah! Fuck too quick.
Less than a minute.
Or can somebody check the bomb for me? Oh, I see him. They're watching A. The back. I'm going around. I'm going around. He's way back there with a sniper. I don't even see how I could clear. I'm going to B.
Oh. One is by B, Caleb.
Where? By B, where?
I don't know exactly. Right there. Plant it. Plant it.
We're planting the bomb. Watch your asses. 30 seconds. Time's up. Move your asses. The bomb has been
He
planted.
has to come towards the bomb. Hide a little bit. Right behind you. Oh, nice work, Tigo.
Let's go!
Stay hungry. There's more where that came from.
Let's go!
Oh! Killing it! Tigo's nasty with that. Cut's over there taking
Switching
home.
sides. Search and destroy. Asset locations confirmed. Defending them is critical.
Y'all died. Where are
On B.
Less than a minute.
There should be another guy over there, Caleb.
Oh no! What? Tom was way off. I heard him behind me. He's on the train tracks. Not those though. The right side.
30 seconds. Time's up. Move your asses. Bomb planted on Bravo. Defuse it.
Oh, he was hiding in the crack.
It's over. We're
That was
RTB.
a
Move
nice
out.
comeback, though, dude.
Yeah. We would have had 5. We could have won the whole time. That boy.
The gods, dude. Chilling. Antigua, you said?
Oh, were they talking? I can never.
I would recommend you guys get the dead silence. But
Oh, it's my.
that's very. Mask on.
Oh, it's the. About the.
And that was. Gotta win one, dude. Something.
Beggars. Just. Right, and I'm like, got like background. Like out map. Got 1, 8 controller players. Mouse. Teammate.
Search and destroy.
Oil can on it.
Safeguard the assets. No mistakes. Reinforcements are not available.
On B.
1 minute remaining.
You got him, nice.
30 seconds. We are out of time. Move.
Silky going in.
I knew he was creeping.
Maintain pressure. Next round, we crush them.
Just had a feeling somebody was creeping.
Well,
Switching sides. Search and destroy.
I'll go bomb. I like it. Safer.
Targets identified. Capture the bomb and engage. You have the bomb. Find the target.
On A. Let's put.
They start shooting.
Planting bomb on target. Keep eyes open. Bomb set. Hold for detonation.
Got him. Yeah, just stay right there. I got this one. Over here, Carlo is coming out to the right. I got it. He's low. He's so low. He's behind the car. He's on the ground. Just leave him. Leave him. Nice, nice. Good. Good. Nice job. 1v1. Just stay alive. He can't even defuse it quick enough, I don't think. Yeah. Oh, you're good.
They're hurting. Send them home. Switching sides. Search and destroy. We have assets in the field. Defending them is critical.
Right in the way. Right.
I think they're on me too.
He's at top. He's at A on the wall.
One minute remaining.
On the corner.
30 seconds. We are out of time. Move.
How did he get down there? Look how he made it.
Boys.
Stay focused. No mistakes. This round is ours.
Can't go on top.
Switching sides.
Gotta get a dog though.
Search and destroy.
Look at it.
Targets identified. Capture the bomb and engage.
I'm gonna go.
You have the bomb. Find the target. Planting bomb on target. Keep eyes open. Bomb planted. Set the perimeter.
Okay, coming towards.
You're the last. Keep moving.
Can't see. Can't. Yeah, I can't see.
Stop the countdown. The bomb is defused. One round means nothing. Prepare to fight.
Be good though. I keep a nice flag.
Switching sides. Search and destroy. We have assets in the field. Defending them is critical.
That right.
One minute remaining.
Hey, me.
I think they're pushing B. I'm getting shot at. He's in the center.
30 seconds. We are out of time. Move.
We're on both. You like that kind of stuff. Get rewarded for that.
One round means nothing. Prepare to fight.
That aim. Look at how he's shooting. Look at that. Dude, that's like.
Switching sides. Search and destroy.
Come on, Russell, settle down now.
Targets identified. Capture the bomb and engage. We have taken the bomb.
I didn't get the bomb. You got it. Oh, dude. Silky got it. I was already there.
1 minute remaining.
Oh, he's on me. Realize I didn't get the bomb. Plane.
So, do it.
30 seconds. We are out of time. Move. One round means nothing. Prepare to fight.
I was on the bomb trying to plant it. I thought I had it.
Switching sides.
Game?
Search and destroy.
We gotta split up.
A.
We'll go ahead.
We have assets in the field. Defending them is critical.
Get out of here. That's crazy.
At you?
One minute remaining.
At A. What? I couldn't even see him. Nice.
On to the next round. Pick it up. Switching sides. Search and destroy.
I'll take it.
Targets identified. Capture the bomb and engage.
Are you going right in?
The bomb is in play. Protect our carrier. One minute remaining. Planting bomb on target. Keep eyes open. Bomb planted. Set the perimeter.
Behind us, coming on the yellow ambulance. We came from Carlo. Yeah, he's coming right back there.
Yes, they're gonna. Right on that bomb.
Coming behind.
Hey, there, we
where
got
you
it.
were.
Got it. We need to get these.
Stay focused. No mistakes. This round is ours.
Keep playing how we've been playing. All we can do. Stick to our game plan.
Switching
Finish
sides.
It. Finish it now, Russell.
Hey,
Search and destroy.
let's go B. Hey,
Okay. I go to A.
We have assets in the field. Defending them is critical.
Right in that top window. That guy's always up there. Let him be.
every time that dude.
Why do you challenge him? Why do you challenge him every time?
Get me.
1 minute remaining.
So what?
So what if I?
Pulling back. Let me kill. I was listening. Yeah.
Stepped the whole way.
30 seconds.
Oh, tree.
We are out of time. Move. Their confidence
Same
grows.
guy.
Use it against them.
See that?
Kidding. My bullets don't even show up on the screen.
Dude, this yellow cream pie guy gotta go.
Switching sides.
You know what we do next time? Push him.
Search and destroy.
I'm gonna use my dead silence.
Alright, I'm going to.
Targets identified. Capture the bomb and engage. The bomb is in play. Protect our carrier.
You out there.
Sitting there camping. Oh,
1 minute remaining. Rest your wounds. We return soon.
we almost won that.
The old Yankee Doodle. It's too. Guys.
Hey, come on. Everybody from the top. What happens if for the real? How much? 30 places. That would be. But even I was that one literally shooting. A bullet? You shot him. Oh, when he was creeping. He didn't even creeping. I seen you scream. You were just staring at him. That boy, you just wait. Oh, said something. I forget. Yeah, that dude was like, he was just creeping like a low spider. You know, like in the movie, the low spider sideways. That's what he was doing. I'm surprised he didn't shoot at you. I shot him though by bullet. Stupid. That's when I. Oh, never play that. Not out yet. Alright, quit. Up. Ready up? Alright, Echo Foxtrot. Okay, up. Ah,
God, this is Echo. Oh my gosh. Look at these guys. You know they meant to do that.
Yeah. Accent, almost everything.
I'm sorry, man. It's pretty funny, though.
Gunfight.
This-
Eliminate all
Yeah, I'm
enemies or
going
capture
right
the
up
overtime
middle,
flag to
middle,
win.
middle. Let's go up the middle, dude. Shotgun rush, shotgun rush. Throw my grenade on the right, too.
Give them a proper English
I get up
welcome.
here. Go, 3 of us. Above you. Probably behind you now.
One round gone. We're not dead yet, are we, lads?
Alright.
It's down to you. Get it done.
Okay.
Put it behind you. We got work to do.
I had the first shot on him. Alright. Fire 3
Right,
rounds.
move your ass.
Going right. Look right in this. Got him. Yep. Up top.
10 seconds. We've got them on the rope. Don't let your guard down.
Alright guys, we got one under our belts. Sitting in the back left. Right.
Two wins
boy.
down. Keep up the pressure.
Go. Hey, you're okay, dude.
Bro, I'm getting smoked.
Here we
Let's
go.
get this done.
Your favorite weapon. I hit him. Dead. Got him. Watching you. Nice. Down. Last one. I think he's top. Go.
3 up, 3 down. Keep going.
He probably would have killed me. Got him. Top. Up there. I hit him. Got him. Two down. Let's go, boys!
That's a 4-win
That's a
streak.
comeback.
Let's
Four in a row.
Halo 92.
Huh?
Where you going?
Let's do this.
Oh.
Oh. Russian. Up top. Boys. Nasty. Careful. Got it. Play it safe. Oh!
Take a breath. We're going back in.
I thought the same thing though. I thought you got him right in this.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
He didn't even get hit on his screen. Hit top. up there. To your left, Carlo. On top. Got it, you got it. Nice! 1v1.
10 seconds.
Got more. Oh!
Forget that round. On to the next.
Back with these weapons. Bad weapons.
Give them a proper English welcome.
Got him.
Oh, right under you.
Under me?
Or no.
Where is he?
You're the last one. Watch your ass.
You guys
10
lost,
seconds.
Health, you better just save and dip.
Objective in play. Get after it. Enemy on the objective. Let's move.
Oh!
They're making us fight for it. Keep at them.
Gosh.
We're down on match point. We need a win. It's down to you. Get it done. They're hurting. Let's send them home. Switching sides.
That's the final one.
Let's go!
Tied up. We're still in it.
You got the grenade, you got the grenade. They're hiding. Got him. One down. Play it safe, play it safe. Don't challenge, don't challenge. Play it safe. I'm watching the left. I got the left. If you want to get behind that left thing back there, I got the... Someone make sure no one comes from the right. Nice, that's two. That's two. Just play it. Oh! Let's go!
Textbook. Well done.
Let's go on the tournament, boy! Dude, I had a perfect dome shot. I said, phew.
Bang! Bang!
What?
Bang! Yeah, they were a team. Let's go!
You're bad, too. No way. Yeah, it's smart to see. That's the type of stuff. Stuff like that. Hey, push back. We're numbers. I was like, oh, we do. Go back a little bit.
He's like Super Mario, that boy ate the button.
Bro, that's the type of stuff. Like, when you got the most health, play the flag. Go back and let them kind of have to go to the flag. I'm not saying you're gonna for I was gonna keep going. Ping ping. Pop down. Ping ping. And then it was just like a two shots straight to the head.
Serious squad, look at that boy. You got the dog. We're playing on Gulag.
Flag, dude.
This map's horrible though.
Oh.
They camp. They camp in the windows. They camp. I'm gonna put the best way I think to win this is different every time. Camp, day,
Gunfight.
the rush. Just switch it up
Eliminate
every
all
time.
enemies or
You know
capture
what
the
I mean?
overtime flag to win.
I'm rushing first, but I'm just gonna be unpredictable. I think that's the way to win this.
I'm going up the middle. You guys go side.
Going up on the same.
Give them a proper English welcome.
Hey, buddy. They're camping. They're camping hard. Let's go!
Perfect. Let's take them home.
What happened?
Headshots.
Only one? Killed them all?
Oh,
I didn't even get one kill.
clapped them.
Oh, I was gonna say I didn't even get one kill. Oh, back left.
We're losing ground. Let's take it back. Triggers pulled. Let's go. On to the next round. Pick it up.
Alright, we gotta switch it up now.
This is a carbine.
That's it. They're already camping. Wait. Alright, hit him. Remember, you can heal. Oh, you guys are dead.
You're the last man standing.
I'll find you.
Ten seconds.
What's they gotta take? They're taking bad bull.
Objective on the field. Go get it. We've got enemy on the objective. Enemy secured the objective.
Didn't even get there.
That's the game. Head in. Stay frosty. On to the next round.
Got
Pick it up.
framed. Where? Thank you, all of them. Nice. Let's go.
We've taken the advantage. Make sure
Not
we
over
keep
yet.
it.
It's not over yet. This map's not.
All right, lads, get in there.
Got the number. It's in a rush. One headshot?
Tough night. Oh, this lag's so bad on me.
Put it behind you. We got work to do.
This lags on me.
Got hit.
Yeah, it's a nice brother.
They're on match point. We've got to even the score.
That is ridiculous. Gosh.
It's over. We're RTB. Move out.
Bullets don't even want to touch me. I don't know. I don't like.
This. Right. Oh, let's just play 2v2.
lagging every time I'm about to.
Gunfight. Eliminate all enemies or
Me too.
capture the overtime flag to win.
Fuck. Said one guy though.
I did.
Oh,
Move up fire, go!
one top left. Guy up there. Hide. Other one's on the exact opposite. Whoa, whoa, I think he went bottom. Bottom. Yeah, he did. He came up from the bottom of our building.
Shake it off. Focus on the next round.
I didn't see you.
We're losing ground. Let's take it back. Right, move your ass.
Got you.
Last man standing. Finish it.
On the right.
10 seconds. Go. Secure that objective. No capture, but we made them pay. Well fought. You're the last man standing.
Oh, I didn't realize he could even...
Forget that round. On to the next.
Oh, it's good. He could see me like that?
Move up fire. Go.
Effective on this game. Behind you, on our side. Top, on top there. Other one's back there, he's in the back part of that side. Up there. That little back part where you can
10 seconds.
Oh, dude, he came on the bottom now. Opposite side.
Objective in play. Get after it.
Right there. Perfect.
That's the way. On to the next
Shot,
round.
nice shot.
Two wins down. Keep up the pressure.
Switch it up, they don't know what to do.
Let's do this.
Top left, right away. Can't challenge people.
One round gone. We're not dead yet, are we, lads?
here, look. Shot. He got shot first.
Switching sides. Take this round, we stay alive. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, he headshot me from your side.
That's it, we've lost the objective. I expect better.
Alright, one more game for me. Oh, right. Apple. Big. Alright, that's the key.
Gunfight. Eliminate all enemies or capture the overtime flag to win.
You know, people who don't support abortion, then okay, I'll look past, but if they're pro-abortion, they won't get my support.
Weapons ready. Move in. They're willing to die for their mission, so be it.
Huh? Well, it should. Nice. You said you're...
You're the last. Fight or die. On to the next round. Pick it up.
Serious? That?
Weapons ready. Move in.
Dude, that made no sense. I'm glad you saw that. Cause that made absolute.
We have the advantage. Keep pushing.
Watch this quick shot. Watch. That made no sense though. That boy was shooting in the walls. Nice.
One round means nothing. Prepare to fight. Tears them down. Go!
Going right up to 6. I think they win.
You're all that is left. Finish it. hungry?
I
There's
knew he
more
had
where
to
that
come
came
out.
from.
So. You want to do that? I'm going to do, boy. That's how you can do it though with this weapon. You don't have to aim. Aim. Got a 100-pound gun.
Who wins down? Keep up the pressure.
You're like, he doesn't know what to do.
Forward. No mercy.
When's he gonna stop? I think it's funny though. Got him? Oh, that was easy.
3 up, 3 down. Keep fighting.
I think I got him frustrated. I think I got him frustrated. They talk so
They've
much
almost
out
had it.
here. I
One
can't
more round.
hear them, but imagine how. Right here. Right back here. But
Good work. We expect great things from you.
look how much they're talking. We have to go until we lose. Huh? Done?
We might not get Steelers. Oh, I would. I know I didn't make no.
I mean,